In the vast ocean of night, between the flickering beacons of stars and the faint hum of radiation that fills the universe, something foreign has arrived. It came quietly, slipping into our solar system from the cold, unlit corridors between stars, a wanderer with no home, no allegiance to the sun, and no reason to exist where it now drifts. Astronomers call it 3I/Atlas, the third known interstellar object ever discovered by humankind. But behind that sterile name lies a secret far stranger than the textbooks can hold. Because what NASA has just confirmed about this object, and what may be hiding between it and the Earth, could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. ATLAS, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, is a watchful network of telescopes designed to protect us. Its task is simple: find threats before they find us. Each night, its lenses sweep the heavens, measuring the movement of millions of faint dots of light, searching for the one that moves wrong. But on one of those nights, it saw something that didn't just move wrong. It moved impossibly. A streak of light, faint and cold, cutting across the star field at a speed no ordinary comet could reach. At first, astronomers assumed it was a fluke, a camera glitch, a fragment of cosmic dust, a reflection from a satellite's forgotten panel. But the data didn't lie. This object was traveling too fast to be bound by the sun. Its path wasn't an ellipse, it was hyperbolic. In other words, it came from somewhere else. As calculations poured in, a chilling realization spread through the scientific community. This was not the first time something had come from beyond our solar system. Oumuamua, the first interstellar object discovered in 2017, had startled scientists with its strange shape and behavior. Then came Borisov in 2019, a comet blazing through space like a visitor from another time. But 3I/Atlas was different. Its speed, its brightness, its trajectory, everything about it defied the logic of natural objects. When astronomers plotted its path, they found that it wasn't merely passing through. It was threading the inner solar system with uncanny precision. And when NASA confirmed its trajectory and composition, the excitement quickly turned into unease. Because something about it felt aware. It began with small anomalies. Its brightness flickered at irregular intervals, too structured to be random, too deliberate to be coincidence. The light curve, the graph of its reflected sunlight, wasn't behaving like a spinning rock or an icy fragment. Instead, it followed a rhythm, faint, repeating, like a pulse. Scientists tried to explain it. Maybe it was a fragmenting nucleus. Maybe jets of gas were venting from its surface, creating bursts of motion and light. But the intervals were too perfect, and they matched no known pattern of natural outgassing or rotation. It was as though the object was signaling, not to us, but to something else, something between it and us. When 3I/Atlas was first detected, it was roughly 10 million kilometers away, close enough to study, but far enough to keep its secrets. Radar couldn't lock onto it. Its surface absorbed or redirected the signals like a cloak. No thermal emissions, no radio chatter, no obvious debris. Just silence. But silence in the universe is never truly empty. As the Atlas network tracked it night after night, faint secondary echoes began appearing in the radar returns. Not from the object itself, but from a region of space between the object and Earth. A ghost signal, a reflection that didn't match the trajectory of any known satellite, asteroid, or debris. At first, the anomaly was dismissed as interference, a false reading caused by solar wind or instrument noise. But it kept repeating, always in the same narrow corridor of space, always aligned between 3I/Atlas and our planet. And when researchers filtered the noise from the signal, they found something they shouldn't have: a pattern. It was subtle, too faint for the untrained eye, but clear to the machines that translated it. A series of repeating pulses, each separated by exactly 1420 megahertz, the same frequency as the hydrogen line, the cosmic standard used in radio astronomy to search for intelligent life. To anyone else, it was just static. But to scientists, it was something far more profound, a whisper carried through the void, echoing in the same universal wavelength that connects every civilization that dares to listen. Was it coincidence? A natural resonance? Or was something hidden between 3I/Atlas and Earth using the object as cover? A relay, a beacon, a message carried across light years of darkness? NASA never called it communication. They used words like anomalous energy event, non-terrestrial interference, and localized emission pattern. But the meaning behind the jargon was impossible to ignore. Something was there. As the weeks passed, 3I/Atlas grew brighter, its coma spreading like a ghostly veil. Amateur astronomers captured it on camera, a smudge of blue-green light sliding silently through the constellations. But when professionals ran deep spectrum analysis, they found compounds that didn't belong, traces of isotopes not seen in ordinary comets, and crystalline structures that scattered light like engineered material. It shouldn't be possible. Not naturally. NASA confirmed the readings but offered no explanation. They simply said the object was chemically anomalous, and that further study was underway. Then, quietly, the public data feed stopped updating. For days, nothing. Then a single line appeared on the internal observation log, monitoring region between Earth and 3I/Atlas for residual activity. Residual activity. But activity of what? In the background, a handful of scientists began comparing notes. A physicist in Chile, a radar engineer in Japan, an astrophysicist in Pasadena. Each had seen the same ghost readings, faint distortions in the magnetic field, microbursts of ionization that rippled across low Earth orbit whenever 3I/Atlas aligned with our planet, as if something unseen was interacting with both worlds at once. One researcher described it as a line drawn in space, an invisible tether connecting the interstellar object and Earth, stretching across the vacuum like a filament of light. If it were natural, it would have broken. If it were a signal, it would have repeated predictably. But it didn't. It pulsed like breathing, irregular, alive. By mid-year, 3I/Atlas began to change direction. Not dramatically, just enough to unsettle those who had tracked its every move. Its orbit shifted by a fraction of a degree, but that fraction could not be explained by solar radiation pressure or gravitational perturbations. It was as if the object had adjusted. That word sent shivers down the spines of those who understood its implications. Because adjustment requires awareness. It requires control. NASA issued an update stating the deviation was within expected parameters. But behind the scenes, the models didn't match. Something had nudged 3I/Atlas, gently, deliberately, altering its trajectory toward a position that brought it perfectly in line with Earth's orbit. For the first time, scientists wondered aloud if the object wasn't just visiting, but observing. Then it happened. A flash, not from the comet, but from the space between. Ground-based observatories in Hawaii, Chile, and South Africa all recorded it within the same second. A pulse of light lasting less than 2 milliseconds, bright enough to register across multiple wavelengths. The frequency matched the earlier hydrogen band anomaly. And when analysts stretched the signal over time, it formed a shape, a spiral. 3 turns outward, 3 turns inward. Mathematically precise. Deliberate. It was not random. It was information. But what kind of information? A map? A code? A signature? No one could say. But whatever it was, it came from the empty space between 3I/Atlas and Earth, the same space the sensors had been tracking for weeks. Something was there. Something invisible, patient, and impossibly quiet. Soon after, NASA released a public statement. 3I/Atlas remains under continuous observation. No current evidence suggests a threat to Earth. But the wording didn't comfort everyone. Because for those who had seen the real data, the threat wasn't impact, it was intelligence. Something had reached across interstellar space and touched our world not with violence, but with attention. And attention is far more dangerous than impact. Today, 3I/Atlas is fading from view, moving beyond the orbit of Mars, back into the darkness that birthed it. To most, it's just another object cataloged and forgotten. But to those who looked deeper, the silence it leaves behind is deafening. Because the echoes still come. Every few nights, deep space antennas register faint, rhythmic spikes at that same frequency, too weak to trace, too perfect to ignore. Always from the same direction. Always from the space between. We tell ourselves it's just interference, a natural resonance of plasma waves or solar reflection. But deep down we know better. Nature rarely repeats itself with such precision. And nothing natural watches the way this does. Maybe 3I/Atlas was never alone. Maybe it was never even the thing we thought we were seeing. Maybe the real visitor was invisible, a machine cloaked in the comet's trail, using it as camouflage, using it as cover. Maybe what NASA confirmed wasn't a comet at all, but a messenger, a probe, or a fragment of something that once came this way before. And maybe what's hiding between 3I/Atlas and Earth is not an object, but a connection, a line drawn through the void by another intelligence, reaching out to see if we're finally paying attention. For now, the watch continues. The telescopes sweep, the signals hum, and in the quiet between transmissions, the universe listens, patient, unblinking, waiting for our next move. Because somewhere in that narrow gulf between an interstellar visitor and our fragile blue world, something has stirred. Something that shouldn't be possible. And as we stare into that darkness, wondering if we are alone, perhaps the answer has already crossed the space between. For a moment, the universe held its breath. And somewhere it still is,